Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we got a lot of Steelers news and rumors to cover here on a beautiful Thursday. First up, we're going to be talking about Jonnu Smith. A new report claims that Jonnu could be on his way to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are targeting him via trade. Jonnu was an awesome player last year for the Dolphins and one of Arthur Smith's all-time favorite players. So we'll talk about that at the top of today's show. Then J.J. Watt, the brother of T.J. Watt, hints at T.J.'s asking price on a new contract extension for the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. And we'll finish up today's show with more takeaways, this time from day 3 of Steelers OTAs. The first week of Steelers OTA practices are officially over, so I'll let you guys know my latest takeaways from Pittsburgh. So before we get into the content today, go ahead and click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. On today's video, we're going to try to break the all-time likes record for a Steelers Talk video in the month of May. Of course, the month is coming to a close here, and the most likes that we got on a single video this month was 987. Our goal today is to get into 4 digits, 1,000 likes on today's show. So if you want to help us out today and you want to help us break a record here on Steelers Talk, click that thumbs up icon to kick off today's show. All right, so it's a classic Arthur Smith move, or at least it would be if this ends up being true, but Adam Schefter from ESPN reports that the Steelers are targeting tight end Jonnu Smith via trade. Schefter put this report out earlier today, saying the Dolphins have had trade discussions with the Pittsburgh Steelers about their lone Pro Bowl selection last season, tight end Jonnu Smith, per league sources. Those talks came after Smith expressed an interest in reworking his deal that is scheduled to pay him $4.8 million this season. With Smith seeking a new contract, Miami has sought a trade partner. Last season, Smith set the franchise record for a tight end in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Smith's preference, per sources, is to stay in Miami under a reworked deal. So if you guys don't know, Arthur Smith absolutely loves himself some Jonnu Smith, who started his career in Tennessee. And Smith utilized his skill set as a very explosive run-after-the-catch threat there in Tennessee, and then brought him with him to the Atlanta Falcons, signed him in his final season there in Atlanta in 2023, and really featured him. He actually had more production than Kyle Pitts in that Atlanta Falcons offense in 2023, which was led, of course, by Smith. So listen, man, for the right price, I actually wouldn't mind a trade for Jonnu Smith. I think that he is somebody that was obviously extremely productive last year with the Miami Dolphins. There were only a select few tight ends that had more production than Jonnu Smith at the tight end position last year. Had a career year, which is why he's trying to get paid this offseason, but 88 catches, 884 yards as a tight end, and then 8 touchdowns, all of which were Dolphins franchise records, and he made his first Pro Bowl of his career last year. But then 2023, also pretty darn good, 50 catches for 582 yards and 3 touchdowns with Arthur Smith calling the plays for him. And, I think a lot of people look at this move and say, but Jack, the Steelers have already paid Pat Freiermuth, a rather big contract for a tight end. They did that last offseason. So why would they want to go out and get another kind of receiving type of tight end to add to this group if you've already paid your tight end and you still don't have a bona fide number 2 wide receiver? Well, I think that the way that the Steelers are kind of, addressing this right now is that they would kind of feel like that they could get Jonnu Smith and they could pair him up with Pat Freiermuth and have one of the most dynamic tight end duos in the National Football League. Arthur Smith is somebody that likes to play a lot when it comes to 12 and 13 personnels, which means 2 and 3 tight ends on the field, okay? Like, Arthur Smith loves to have those kind of heavier formations, and, the Steelers just have really, I would say, 2 starting quality tight ends on their roster right now. That's Pat Freiermuth, your receiving tight end, and then Darnell Washington, who's your blocking tight end. But DW doesn't really bring a whole lot as a receiver. He's more of just a true hulking presence as a run blocker. And if you bring in Jonnu Smith, you could go out there in 12 personnel and have 2 legitimate receiving threats out there in Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, and you could really do some creative stuff while, really keeping the defense guessing because you have the size out there to run the football, but you also have the receiving ability to be able to pass the football off of play action or even just straight up drop back passing. So I wouldn't overpay for Jonnu Smith, guys, but I would be willing to give up a mid to late round draft pick and then give him a decent sized contract if the Steelers really feel like they want to go really hard in the paint when it comes to the 12 and 13 multiple tight end looks. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. A 5th round pick. Would you accept or decline that trade offer if that's the price tag to acquire Jonnu Smith? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. This will be the pinned question on today's show. So when you get a second down there and YouTube throws you an ad break, while that ad is playing, go down there in the comment section and give me an A or a D. All right, so now we move on over to the T.J. Watt contract situation here, where his brother, J.J. Watt, says that NFL teams should pay guys early so they don't have to pay more later, kind of hinting that T.J. Watt is trying to get a lot of money from the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. JJ said, reward your players earlier and reap the benefits in the long run. Dragging it out not only ends up costing more, it creates unnecessary tension. The longer you wait, the higher the price. So essentially what he's hinting at here is that TJ Watt would have probably signed an extension for less if they would have gotten a deal done last offseason or earlier in this offseason. And now, because we've seen Myles Garrett reset the market here at $40 million per season with the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers now are going to have to pay more for TJ Watt if they want to keep him around long term, because plain and simply, TJ is the most valuable defensive player in all of football, at least in my opinion. He still is, even though he is approaching 30 years old here. And Myles Garrett did reset the market, and right now he is the highest paid edge rusher by far in the National Football League on a per year basis. We've seen Max Crosby and Danielle Hunter get new deals at just over $35 million per season, which might be what the Steelers are offering TJ right now. But I guarantee you, especially with the way TJ is kind of framing this, that TJ is probably asking closer to the $40 million per season mark so that he can be the highest paid edge rusher in all of football. And that's what I think the Steelers are going to have to pay up if they want TJ to sign a contract extension this offseason. And he might demand to get that extension if he's going to play at all here in 2025. So I think if the Steelers don't like that, they probably should have paid him earlier. They should have paid him last offseason and got it done early, like J.J. Watt alluded to, or they should have got it done before Myles Garrett signed his massive deal so that they wouldn't have had to pay as much as now that they have to pay. Because TJ is absolutely, in terms of overall value, probably the most valuable defensive player in all of football, and he wants to probably be compensated that way. So if the Steelers don't like the fact that they probably have to pay TJ Watt $40 million per season, well, if you want him for the long-term future, that's just a little bit too bad. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Should the Pittsburgh Steelers pay TJ Watt $40 million per season on his next deal? Do you think TJ is worth that money? Type P for pay or type N for not. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm telling you about Fanatics today, let me know whether or not you would pay TJ Watt this kind of money. And with that being said, let's shift our focus here to another member of the Steelers defensive line. First round pick Derek Harmon, who's going to be wearing the number 99 for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward into the early years of his NFL career. If you want to get his jersey from our friends at Fanatics today, you can go to chatsports.com/Harmon. That is down in the comments and description of today's show. If you click that link and you make a purchase, Fanatics is going to send us here at Steelers Talk part of the proceeds. So we greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. So if you want a Derek Harmon jersey in your closet and you want to help us out here at Steelers Talk, feel free to click that link down in the comments and description and make a purchase today. So now let's finish up today's edition of News and Rumors here on Steelers Talk with my latest OTA takeaways. Of course, earlier today, it was the final practice of Week 1 of Steelers OTAs. They will be practicing next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as well. We will get you guys updates on every single day of OTA practices here on Steelers Talk, so click that subscribe button. But the first takeaway here is the early struggles for Will Howard. Now, this is definitely not the thing that we want to hear as Steelers fans, especially for the people that want Howard to start for the team this year. But he addressed the media today, and he said, you know what? I didn't really have a great start to these OTAs here. Faribaugh from Penn Live here says Will Howard said that he had a quote-unquote rough first day of OTAs on Tuesday, but feels he has learned and grown throughout the week. Quote, I wasn't really comfortable yet, didn't really know where my feet were, my timing was off, but that's a learning experience that I've learned, unquote. So the reason why this is a little bit concerning, guys, is because these offseason workouts are specifically designed for players to feel comfortable and for them to pretty much look good. Like there's a reason why at this point in the season, every single, team has players that are quote unquote looking great and, looking phenomenal and looking like future stars. It's because, these OTA workouts, they're not really that, I don't know if I want to say they're not that rigorous, but they're definitely designed to make players look good. And if Will Howard's not looking good out there, that is something that's definitely not the best for the Pittsburgh Steelers if you're hoping that this guy's going to hit the ground running this year. But with that said, it is still very early. He is getting his feet under him here. It's a new organization in a new city that he's just getting used to here. So even though I don't think Will Howard is ready to play in the NFL here in week 1, and he's going to have to take probably at least a year or at least half a season here before he's going to be ready to start in an NFL football game. I do think that I'm happy that he's here. I do think he's got some nice physical tools, and he apparently did play better in the final 2 practices than he did in the first day on Tuesday. So I guess we'll see how it goes from here. But another thing that I took away from this week is that Cole Holcomb is looking damn good, man. Like he's coming back from that gruesome knee injury that took him out for most of the 2023 season and then the entirety of the 2024 season last year. And he's looking like himself out there. He's looking like he hasn't really lost any of the juice or athleticism that he had pre-injury and that he's fully back. And, when he back in 2023, he was a legitimate starting linebacker in the National Football League. He wasn't like a star player or anything like that, but he was a legitimate starter. So if you're getting that level of player back in Cole Holcomb this year, I think that is absolutely something that's going to be good for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And who knows, maybe Cole Holcomb regains his starting position with this Steelers defense and makes it difficult for second-year linebacker Peyton Wilson to take that starting job away from him this offseason if he continues to play well. Then another player that's kind of standing out here is Isaiah Loudermilk, who is apparently impressing pretty early on here in the first couple of practices there in Pittsburgh, according to Andrew Filipponi. His Steelers insider, Jeff Hathorn, says the Steelers' best defensive lineman at OTAs in the parts of practice we're allowed to talk about has been Isaiah Loudermilk. Now, Loudermilk, I thought, was a pretty decent contributor for this team in a rotational role last year. He's been with this team for a number of years at this point. But the way that I'm kind of feeling about Loudermilk is the more quality depth you have along the defensive line, the better. I think we all know that Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward, probably Derek Harmon are going to be your first 3 guys in the rotation, but you still need other guys to rotate in. I expect Daniel Equale, a free agent signing, to also work his way in, and then Loudermilk is another guy that can certainly work his way in. And if he continues to impress the way that he has, I could certainly see him rising up the depth chart and getting more and more snaps as his NFL career progresses. But I will say, the pads haven't come on, and I will say, pump the brakes on any hype surrounding offensive and defensive linemen before the pads come on once we get to training camp. Then we get to the new DBs coach here in Pittsburgh, who apparently has been just phenomenal to this point. Gerald Alexander, the new DBs coach that was brought in from the Las Vegas Raiders previously, is being brought in here to try and fix some of the communication issues that this unit really struggled with last year. Is one of the big reasons why the defense collapsed the way that it did. And Alexander apparently has been on his P's and Q's, and he's been doing a really good job stressing the details with the Steelers secondary in the early practices of the offseason. Alan Saunders from Steelers Now says, really cool watching Gerald Alexander running through a million scenarios, stressing the communication of the Steelers secondary today. So it's really good to see that the standard is being held up here by Gerald Alexander in the Steelers secondary, and I'm hoping that leads to better results than what we saw at the tail end of the 2024 season for this group. And then speaking of the secondary, one of the lead members here was starter DeShon Elliott at the strong safety position. Praises the Steelers organization. I wanted to kind of stress this because there's a lot of people out there that call the Steelers a cheap organization, or that they are all these different things. They call them all these different names. And, it's certainly true that, the Rooneys are not, as cash rich as some of the other owners in the National Football League. And as a result, they don't have all the bells and whistles of a lot of the teams in the National Football League. But the thing they do care about is their players and the people that are in the locker room. And DeShon Elliott really highlighted that today, saying you walk in the building, and honestly, it's hard to describe the feeling. Just knowing that when a coach talks to you, he's not talking to you just to check a box. He's talking to you because he actually cares. If I'm talking with Mike T, it's about my family or things I have going on at home, like my dad. They've reached out to try and help me with that. It feels like something different to me. I really love being here. And I think the truth of the situation here, guys, is that there's a reason why, the Steelers organization has the reputation that it does. The reputation around the league is that they do things and they operate business the correct way. And a big part of that is that everybody that, comes through this organization feels like they are a part of a family. Now, even though they don't have the fanciest locker room in the world or necessarily the best training facilities in the world, and, definitely not the best locker room at Acrisure Stadium in the world, they don't have all the bells and whistles in some of the more cash-rich franchises out there. But the players that come through here really feel valued and appreciated and loved. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of Mike Tomlin as a head coach, is that he does a really good job of connecting with his players, which is why, he's so respected and why this organization as a whole is so respected. So if you really appreciate the Steelers organization, if you're proud to be a Steelers fan and be somebody that cheers for this organization, click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. A reminder here that we are trying to break the all-time May record for likes on a Steelers Talk video on today's show. So if you want to help us out in that regard and you're proud to be a Steelers fan, click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that subscribe button. We're going to have more coverage for you guys on the Pittsburgh Steelers all throughout the weekend. If we get updates on Aaron Rodgers, if we get more updates on potentially the Steelers getting Jonnu Smith or any other offensive playmaker, we will make sure to get you guys a video on this channel. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already.